Happy Rom-Com Month, everybody. We are doing 28 Days of Love, and today is day 22. I am your host, Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker. When I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut. It's another way to say Carpe Diem. That comes from a weird thing that happened in college where I left an actual donut on a table and it became an object lesson for me and what it looks like to leave opportunity behind. So now I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut. The reason I'm saying this is that from time to time, I'll issue myself a take the donut challenge. If there's something that I want to do, something I want to go after, I'll make it official and I'll use that as a way to hold myself accountable to it. But this time, I'm opening up the challenge to anybody who wants to join. So here we are. We're doing 28 Days of Love, 28 Days of Rom-Coms. Today's day 22, and we are watching Love and Basketball. And specifically, I'm going to talk about 10 things I love about this movie, but I'm not doing this alone. I'm here with Jordan Robinson, who's the co-host of the Queens of the Court podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you. You did not have to pull my arm at all to talk about my favorite movie. So happy to be here.
I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you. But tell us more about that. What's your background and what's your background with this film?
Yes, so I am a journalist, a podcaster, a host, an author, all things rooted in women's basketball. I started playing basketball when I was 5, and I would um, drive to my rec league games with the Love and Basketball soundtrack playing, specifically track number 5, which was MC Light, Light as a Rock. That was my pump up song. So that's how deep my love for this film goes. While I was working at The Ringer as a fact checker and a writer for them, I got to interview the author, interview some of the actresses and actors who are in the movie for the 20th anniversary for a feature article. And that was such a full circle moment to be able to talk to the director, Gina Prince-Bythewood, and pick her brain of why she made this movie and why it's so great. So it is still a classic all these decades later because it's just a great movie about love and basketball. It's perfect. It's all the things I love.
I mean, how amazing is that? It's so magical that this movie that you loved so much as a kid, that you got this very adult, different way of experiencing it. And it sounds like that only made your love for it grow. So, which is good, right? Because, the meeting your
Hmm.
heroes thing, it's like that could work out or that could not. And here you are,
Yes.
so it worked out.
It worked out. It definitely worked out.
Oh my goodness. What a beautiful story. Clearly, you're exactly the person that I need to talk to about this one. And here's how we'll do it. So, we're doing a top 10 list. It's not exactly a deep dive, but we are going to cover 10 of our favorite things about the movie, and we're going to see where the conversation goes from there. I'll get the even numbers, Jordan's going to get the odd numbers, and we'll just take it from there. Before we do that, I know you sort of briefly mentioned there were people involved in this movie. Who are they? So, Love and Basketball came out in 2000. It was
Mhm.
directed and written by Gina Prince-Bythewood, and it stars Sanaa Lathan as Monica Wright, Omar Epps as Quincy McCall. Actually, quite a lot of people, but I'm also going to add Alfre Woodard in here as Camille Wright, Debbie Morgan as Nona McCall, Dennis Haysbert as Zeke McCall.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, there's so many people that you could name, right? But the parents feel like a real force in this movie. That doesn't
Yeah.
always happen in coming of age movies, so I like that about this film.
Hmm.
Um, but let's get into our top 10 list. And I'm actually going to start with number 10 on this.
Okay.
They don't do it throughout the film, but I love that they have us hear Monica's inner dialogue during the game in front of the recruiter. Um, I suspect that this is universal to every sport, and I'm maybe other pursuits. Like, I don't know, maybe if you're a musician or something, the same thing happens. But I was a gymnast, and this is the conversation that happens in your head. Like when you're on
Hmm.
beam, this is all you hear. This is like the voice, and that voice can say a variety of different things, either for good or
Yes.
for evil. Um, and we all have that demon. Some people are better at keeping it at bay than others, but different people will have like, okay, they're like maybe like patterns or rhythms or sounds that are associated with a routine, or it could be specific words like Monica's using here, like corrections for yourself, that little reminders of what you need to do.
Hmm.
But it's actually one of my favorite things about sport that like you can hear all that stuff in your head. And then if you're lucky and you have good teammates, you might be able to supplement that with the words they're telling you. So like I can always remember doing a routine and having hearing my teammates say certain things at certain times and adding it to the language that I was using for myself. So I don't know if I've seen a movie try to capture that in the same way. And it seems
Absolutely.
so obvious. And like here we are. So I like that I get to hear what's happening for Monica as she's playing.
It was a perfect inside look at what it takes to be at the top of your craft, really. And I loved that it was a lot of confidence building. It was very much like I know what I can do. She's standing left, attack that foot, go right, pump fake. It was all the things that you are telling yourself in your head while you're working out and when you're in the gym putting up shots by yourself. And so now this is a big game in front of a recruiter. I'm going to remind myself of all the same things that I've done when I've been by myself. And we have all done that. That's just another layer of this film that makes it so relatable. And it makes so much sense that Gina, the director and the writer, was a basketball player herself because there's so many moments throughout the movie where it's like, okay, only a hooper would really know to add that tidbit in. And that's why I love this movie so much. And that's why that's one of my favorite things too.
Well, and it's interesting because I think a lot of movies, when they show you important moments in the protagonist's sport, they'll have you hear crowd noise.
Hmm.
And that's like maybe the last thing you hear in some situations.
You
Like,
block it out. You don't hear the crowd at all,
yeah.
ever.
Yeah, that's for everybody else. Like you're hearing what Monica's saying right now. So it's
Hmm.
I just don't know why I haven't seen it done that way. And I
Hmm.
love that Gina added that detail into this. And it puts us right inside. Like this, of course, we know how Monica talks to other people. That's the dialogue. But
Yeah.
this is how she talks to herself. So, it's a different kind of window
Hmm.
into her attitude, into how she treats herself and how she wants to be treated.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, that's so good.
So,
Okay, okay. Well, mine are all over the place ranking wise, but what came to my mind for number nine is kind of the end, like skipping to the end where we see Monica Wright in an LA Sparks uniform. We get to see other WNBA players. We get to see Lisa Leslie, Edna Campbell. Like these were players that when I was growing up looking towards the WNBA as my favorite thing in the world, this is a character that we have been following throughout the movie, and she reaches the mountaintop. The WNBA is always the dream, it's always the goal. And I've been kind of preaching this throughout my work how people who, the trolls on the internet, or people that just don't know women's basketball and the WNBA, they talk down on it. But the W has always been the dream for any women's basketball hooper. And so I love that there's a fictional character who still gets the dream of the real life WNBA in the inaugural season. And she has her husband and her baby in the front row, and she's able to live out every women's basketball player's dream. So it felt like it was very full circle that she won the love of her life and she has her family and she's able to be at the top of her craft in the WNBA. So it was a dream come true. It was a fairy tale ending for a women's hooper. And that's why it's one of my favorite parts.
so that was the inaugural season.
Hmm.
Okay, so that would
97.
97. Oh my goodness, that adds just
Yes.
beautiful extra detail that I didn't realize. So
Yes.
good.
And LA Sparks was one of the eight original teams. So when we get to see Monica overseas and struggling with that, that was the only option for women's players after college graduation. Now, starting in 97, they have this professional league in the United States, and LA was her city. So she's able to play professional in her city, represent the Sparks, and it's a fairy tale ending. Like that, it doesn't get much better than that when you're a pro and you're able to play for your hometown team.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. I didn't know that piece, so this makes it even better at the end. What a fairy tale. It's so good. You know what wasn't a fairy tale, Jordan?
Uh-oh.
Number eight, the 1981 relationship between Monica and Quincy that
Hmm.
lasted, I mean, if we say 5 seconds, that might be generous. I mean, it was like, well, it was a 5 second kiss. So I guess it was 5 seconds. And then that was it. Um, I mean, little kids are fickle.
Hmm.
This was a lot.
A lot to unpack there, even in a 5 second kiss with the finger counting and all.
Oh my gosh, this was just never going to work. I mean, you know, like not at that age. They had some things to go through. They had some growing to do. They needed to get
Yes.
back to the same place, and this wasn't it. They thought it was. How often has that happened, right? Thought it was, but it was not.
What's something so cool about that though is, Kyla Pratt was young Monica, who is an icon. But one of my favorite things, especially watching this for the first time as a little girl, is Monica always knew who she was. She knew that she didn't love dresses. She knew that she wanted Twinkies instead of flowers. Like, this is who I am. And I don't want to ride on your bike. I want to ride my own bike. Those are things as young girls and young black girls in particular, to be able to have that sense of self that young was so cool. And he was like, wait, this isn't my picture of what a girlfriend is supposed to be like. And so to have it full circle come back later that he's like, this is everything that I love about you, that was a special moment. It was a foreshadowing that he's actually going to love that you are none of those things, like the cookie cutter women that are out there.
Yeah, it's the first thing that kind of rocks his playbook. It's like this is what a relationship looks like. I've seen it with my own two eyes, and the foundation of that is gonna get shaken in this movie many times, like
Oh
every
yeah.
day. But for her to be like, I literally don't want that. Like, just he's like, here's my offer. She's like, I do not accept. And it's so good. Not even just to be able to know. I mean, gosh, what an example to be able to set for young girls everywhere. Like to know what you want, but then also to be able to say it.
Hmm. And
Um,
express it.
that part's hard. Like
Oh
just
yeah,
as hard as knowing to begin with. And I think there are many adults who haven't mastered the skill that young Monica had. So, um,
for sure.
what a what a model for all of us.
On so many levels. We
Yeah.
love young Monica.
Okay. Okay, so that's number eight. What do you have for number
Okay,
seven?
I think this transitions well because I I don't know if this is one of my favorite things, but a little bit. So Tyra Banks is in this movie and she is stunning and a model and kind of exactly what I was just saying, the very cookie cutter flight attendant. She has perfectly laid hair, makeup done. And Quincy, at this point, when they are engaged, he's an NBA player. So, of course, this is who you would imagine as his arm candy, right? But it's the superficial that he thinks that, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, but I'm gonna follow my heart. And so when it's the whole one-on-one game, I'll play you for your heart. I feel like that was a light bulb moment going off in his mind, being like, okay, what do I actually want? Do I want to be able to play basketball with my wife? Like, that's really cool. That's amazing. We even get a glimpse of Quincy and Tyra Banks cleaning out his childhood room, and he's saying he wants to bring his cue, his basketball, and she's like, no, 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 this doesn't work with the decor. This isn't it. And why that realization is so important to me because of my own love story. I realized that from people that I've dated before, I'm like, yeah, I played basketball. It's a part of my life, but it's okay if you don't like basketball. Like, we can get around it. And that's not true. My husband loves basketball, and I realized I had to be with someone who loves basketball just as much as I do. And I feel like that light bulb moment when they're playing one on one, Quincy realized, yeah, Tyra's not that. It's Monica. I have to go with Sanaa Lathan and Monica's character. That's the person I love because we have the common ground of basketball.
Yeah, what a good realization. I will say though, I mean, I do enjoy Tyra Banks circa 2000. Well, they probably shot this before it came out in 2000, but
Hmm.
she around the same time, I feel like she was sort of getting into acting around this point. She was
Yes.
in a season of some episodes of season 3 of the show Felicity,
Okay.
which was on like the WB at the time. And so I was like kind of getting exposed to Tyra Banks in a different way around this period. Her career became all these interesting things, all smashed into one
Absolutely.
career. So it's fun to go back and see this actress in this role. As with so many of the people on this cast, like you can look back and be like, wow, this is kind of a who's who. Uh,
And no one, talking to some of the actors, no one thought it was going to be this big. As big of a movie it was. And I think the funny part about it is when it launched in theaters, it wasn't that big. It was a very small movie, a low budget even, and it's something that later gathered more and more traction as it's just been out in the world longer. But, talking to Erica Ringer, who plays Sidra, and she was like, yeah, I just heard a casting call on the radio, and that's how it was at my old high school in LA, and I played basketball, so sure, why not? Like, nobody thought that it was going to be this huge, huge hit, and it has blown everyone out of the water.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and just that whole scene is beautiful. I want to actually pull from that for number 6 so we can keep talking about it.
Hmm.
The Fool of Me needle drop. Yes, the whole scene, but also that's for sure my favorite song choice in this whole movie. Um, and I think it really is sort of like capped off by like after he's made his choice. It's like the best hug I've ever seen. And all with this like the feeling that comes with this song. I appreciate the fact that in this that they didn't sort of take the easy way out in this scene. It wasn't like he just let her win. Like he was still conflicted. He was still working it out. He needed the extra 5 seconds it took him a little longer. Like he needed to see, I guess, the reaction that she
Hmm.
had after she lost. Um, to realize he didn't want her to have that reaction. So I think it was, and he didn't want to feel it himself. So I think, I like the progression of that. It wasn't so straightforward
Hmm.
of who won the game, that's the outcome. But yeah, the Fool of Me
So good. I'm
choice.
telling you, the best soundtrack ever. When movies used to release soundtrack CDs, we as a family, for some reason, really gravitated towards those, and Love and Basketball is by far the best. But I will say, this scene is very popular and repeated constantly of, Monica waking Quincy up and saying, I'm I've loved you since I was 8 and the shit won't go away and saying I will play you for your heart. It's very controversial. A lot of people don't like it. Even though I was just watching an NBA game the other day and it was a car commercial and they use the same line. They pull up in front of a blacktop basketball hoop and he says, I'll play you for your car. Like that is iconic in itself. But it's controversial because of the song choice. I just saw a thread about this the other day. They're saying, Monica's losing. They're saying you made a fool out of me. She looks so defeated. How embarrassing that she put herself out there and he's dunking on her. Like, why would she still want to be with somebody who just dunked on you? Like, you should have wanted someone to immediately say yes. But I don't see it that way. I agree with you. I think he needed to work it out. And what better way than using basketball as a therapeutic release to be able to fight through your emotions and be able to work through things. There have been multiple times in my life where I have been conflicted or confused on something, and I go to the gym because that's a place where I feel the most free and have clear headspace. So I like it, and I love the song choice, and it made you will they, won't they, and you're rooting for it, but you feel bad for Tyra because she definitely planned this whole wedding, but you're rooting for this love from the beginning. So, yes, I am team on board that I love this scene.
And for the people who don't love it, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to jump into the comments and share your perspective on this. He comes around very quickly.
Yeah,
He comes around maybe unnaturally quickly. So if the argument is like, don't you want somebody who would immediately know? It basically is that. I mean,
pretty fast.
I guess the thing is, we've never really left Monica for the whole movie.
Hmm.
There have been a few scenes that focused on more on Quincy, but like for the most part, we've been with her the whole time. they a lot of time has passed in this movie, and they have had many, many years of not seeing each other in a row, and she's just back right now. And like, of course he has this other thing brewing. Like, he
Right,
moved
of
on.
course.
Like,
Yes.
he's already at some point accepted the life with Tyra Banks's character.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
like, of course this is going, it shouldn't just be that he's like, forget her. Like, I would like to think that there was a little something to that
A
relationship.
pause. Yeah.
Has to consider the ramifications,
Yeah.
and that he's like, why, and it is like weeks away from when he's supposed to get married. So I could appreciate the like, why the timing that you
Hmm.
have right now. So I like that he has to work through a little bit of conflict, and it happens relatively quickly. Um, and I think for what we got, the fact that it didn't appear to work out right away, but you breathe through it, you sit with it, and sometimes a thing that looks like it's not working out, it will work out. It's just
Hmm.
not the right time. And she got there relatively quickly. So I think there's a good message in there. It's just, how you choose to look at it. But it is interesting that it's kind of a Rorschach test of like
It is.
love. It's interesting that of the controversy you've heard, it's not like pro Tyra Banks.
No,
like that there's none of that.
I will say with another podcast that I was talking about this movie, when it was kind of a question of when you watch it now, who are you rooting for or sad about or anything that has changed? And planning a wedding just a few years ago, I feel for Tyra Banks. The deposits were paid. Like she's not getting her money back. All the invitations sent out. She's getting final fittings on her wedding dress in this 2 week span, and it's just exploded. So I never, watching it before, felt any type of way for Tyra Banks. And I don't think you're supposed to because she's just this character that kind of came in the middle of nowhere. But now, as a recent bride, I'm like, oh my God, I would be traumatized and heartbroken and broke because all my money would have been gone from those deposits. So I do feel for Tyra's character.
Force majeure clauses do not accommodate this particular choice.
They do not. They do not.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so I think we've covered some ground here with that scene from two different angles. What do you have for number 5?
So for number 5, I know you said that that song, "Full of Me," was the best song choice, but I have a counter, and
Okay.
I'm going to go with Maxwell, "A Woman's Work," during their sex scene, the time that they finally get together, the just the energy, the awkwardness, everything that was high schoolers finally realizing that they love each other. And it also came after getting accepted to USC and recruited. I just feel like you can't listen to that song without thinking about love and basketball in that scene. And it was just perfect. It was a perfect song choice. I loved everything about it.
I mean, it's another great needle drop. And
Yes.
it brings all the feelings of watching that scene, which is like horror. Like it's so
It's
uncomfortable.
so cringy
It
in the
captures the
best
awkwardness.
way.
Yeah.
Yes. It captures it so perfectly. And another thing that I just think Gina did so well with these characters and Monica and how she's not super tapped into her feminine side. And this is a scene where you are and you should be. And she's like, wait, I'm a tomboy and I'm wearing this dress and these pearls and I don't feel super comfortable right now. But I love this man. So I have to figure it out in real time. And it's just something you don't forget. The song choice and Maxwell was perfect.
And to see her so like in this arena of her life, like such a different personality, in a way. Like
Hmm.
we've seen her tackle all kinds of things head on before in this movie and in the future, even stuff that's relationship based. There are conversations she has that she just dives right into it with
Yeah.
with so much bravery. And to see how very like she shields herself so much, quite literally. And it's like, I think it goes to show like something that I find very real as an adult, where it's like you can be so confident and so have so much power in this arena of your life, but not this one.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you bring a different part of you into it. And so I liked being able to see that from her, because she's not a superhero.
Right.
Like she's
She
not
is very much a person.
invincible. She's a
Hmm.
person and she's learning, and we all are. So it's like, well, if it can happen for Monica.
I know. So good. So good. One
Ooh,
of my favorite
okay.
parts.
You've made a good case for that needle drop. Well, let's go to, I want to take number four to a broader theme.
Okay.
Um, the theme of standing up for yourself is prominent throughout this movie, both with Monica and with Quincy.
Mhm.
And I think it's a really important one to see. And I mean, there are a couple scenes in particular that really jumped out with me for this. So if I'm stepping on any of your territory, let me know. But
Okay.
the first sort of the confrontation that Quincy has with his father, when his dad's like, oh, no, no, no. See, like cheating, no, like it was, this is how it's fine. Like it's not, it's sort of gaslighting, but it's also just like, it's fine. And
Hmm.
Quincy doesn't think it's fine. And he's standing his ground here, like, no, like I'm pretty sure this is not what I believe in.
Hmm.
And for him to be able to like stay sort of fixed in that, he's not rude, he's just holding his ground. And Monica does something similar with her mom. It's this really interesting generational conversation, one that I
Hmm.
think could happen in a lot of households. It could happen in mine. Like, um, Monica's like, I don't really respect my mom for the choices that she's made to not stand up for herself and to not be there for me when I was standing up for myself.
Hmm.
And she articulates that to her mom, and her mom's like, no, but see, I was being a mom. Like, that was what I
Hmm.
was doing. And she's like, yeah, I don't think you realize what I took from that. Um, and like in that case, like you feel for both people, but Monica's still saying, like, no, no, like, I get what you're saying, and I'm saying, like, here's what I wanted. Um, and you can't just ignore that. So I like that we see these characters doing this for the entire movie. And I think is a really important example to set for people, especially when you get a lot of, particularly rom-coms, where you'll see somebody like holding something in or sacrificing something.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a virtue. And so like to see this, I think is I mean that's how Monica gets to the fairy tale at the end,
Hmm.
because she was able to like say these are the things I want.
Hmm.
Um and yeah, I think it's a beautiful lesson.
Absolutely. When you're saying that, I thought about how, how they communicated to each other and communicated their feelings, pretty much throughout to anybody who would listen, really. It's a big part of the dialogue is standing up for yourself and saying what you believe in and saying how you feel. And we don't get that a lot. And that's why the scene where Monica shows up, they're in college at USC. Monica shows up to Quincy's apartment and he's about to take another girl out. That's why it was so heartbreaking for us as a viewer because it's like, wait. We've been talking and communicating this whole movie. And now you just do something out of character and behind all of our backs. It felt so much like betrayal. And I think that's what set that scene up so well because I would say in another rom-com in another life, it could have been more dramatic. She could have walked in maybe on them sleeping with each other or walked in on their date and saw them. But just the fact that he didn't tell her and he was doing something slight behind her back, it felt super like a cross, double cross to us because they've been so good at standing up for themselves and being great communicators up until this point. So that's so good. I
I
love
like that
that.
you mentioned that scene too, because I think on first viewing, way back when, I think I felt like, oh, that Quincy. Um, but as an adult watching it, I'm like, is it the most mature way to handle how he was feeling about the fact that she honored curfew instead of him? No, it's not. But I get all the soup of things that was happening for him in his
Oh yeah, it was a
brain.
lot. There's a lot going on.
So yeah, like it's like I mean, it's lashing out. It's not good. It's not an example I'd want to set in a relationship. And I see how he got there.
Hmm.
It hurt him a lot that she made a choice that wasn't him when he really needed her. And he couldn't articulate how much he needed her to stay. He kind of just wanted her to know. I think it's the thing that people say women do all the time. And it's interesting to see
Hmm.
this reflected in a male character where
Hmm.
it's like, well, if you wanted me to stay, like, I don't know if she would have, honestly, under any
Yeah,
circumstance, but I
you gotta
think,
make curfew.
yeah, gotta make curfew. But yeah, it's interesting the way my thoughts on that. Like, I get it. I get why it was a deal breaker for her, though. And,
Hmm.
sometimes we don't need the same things. And
Makes
that's where we
sense.
are. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Well, okay, so
Okay,
number four. So you have number three.
I have number three, and I think this is a great transition because you kind of talked about it a little bit. And what I wrote down was Monica's relationship with her mom.
Mm,
Again, Gina Prince Blythewood nailed this as somebody who grew up playing basketball, just a teenage girl in general. Your relationship with your mom is always tough sometimes, but just naturally being closer to my dad, it was very personal to me because my mom was at all of my games, but she didn't understand the competition, and that one time that Monica came home from USC after the scene that we just talked about with Quincy, she sees him with another girl and she's upset and she's coming through the door and you can clearly see that there's something wrong. And Monica never, she always wore her emotions on her sleeve. So another thing I respected about her. But her mom yells out, "It's just a game. It's just a game. You always get upset after you lose. It's just a game." And that, ugh, as somebody who is so competitive and so wrapped up and for a long time made basketball my entire identity, it was hard to relate to someone who didn't understand that, who didn't get that it's not just a game. Like, it's more than that for me. And, I love my mom dearly, and she was at every single one of my games and she was cheering, but she didn't get why I wouldn't talk for 3 hours after a loss. Like, and my dad did because he played football at a very high level. So it was hard to see that in the film, but also I appreciated it because that is a big part of especially being a girl basketball player growing up as a young girl when it's supposed to be looked at as, oh, it's just this fun game. And the men over there, they're competitive. They should be angry or they have emotions. And we are supposed to be just prissy and like just happy to be here. And I am such a competitor. And so that line and those conversations, those hard conversations with her mom were real. And I know that a lot of young girls growing up had those conversations either with their mom, their friends, their teachers, other people that would probably say that men are supposed to feel those emotions, not so much the girls. So I just loved how that was written into the script. And it was a huge part of Monica's story, her relationship with her mom.
Beautifully said. I mean, I think it's just so real, the things that
Hmm.
are dealt with here. I think also, yeah, I think the generational component of this is very interesting to me because you can hear what they're both saying and you can
Hmm.
see how they both are looking at this through a completely different lens. And at some point there needs to be like a Monica to mom translator and reverse, like it's not enough in any relationship, I think, to just speak your own language. You have to be trying to meet in the like not meet in the middle, but be relatable to each other. If you care about
Hmm.
the person, like what
Understand.
does acceptance really look like?
Yeah.
And like her mom, I think thought that this is a lesson. These are lessons that she's teaching her daughter. Like all of these things where she's like sort of Monica's saying, here's who I am. She's like, well, this is what I'm teaching you instead.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
those aren't necessarily lessons. Those are you not acknowledging what your daughter is saying. And
Hmm.
then like, what does the daughter do with that? And how does she react to that?
Hmm.
Because it really ultimately is a reaction that she has to have. So it was really interesting to see that play out in this way. And yeah, there was a lot of different things that I took away from the Monica and mom dynamic.
Absolutely.
And it's all just so real. But yeah, like when your identity equals this thing, whatever this thing is, and somebody says, it's not a big deal. They're saying you're
It's
not a big
not a
deal.
big deal. Yeah. You feel personally attacked. Like you're
Yeah.
saying I am not a big deal. If I lose a game, I lose. Like it was bigger than that. But I even think about, at the breakfast table, the scene towards the beginning of the movie where they kind of set up the tension between her and her mom. And her mom's like, "Well, you'd be pretty if you did something to that hair." And she's like, I'm a lesbian. Like, she's just like, I am personally trying to rebel against anything that you're saying. And that was a teenage daughter moment, but also a younger sister moment. Somebody who has the younger sister or who has an older sister who was very girly. And I was like, no, I'm all about ball. You just don't understand me, mom. So it was very real and again pulling from Gina's personal experience and it just was like, yes, you get us. You understand. We've all gone through
Yeah.
it.
Well, I'd like to take stay on Monica here for a bit. I feel like Quincy hasn't gotten quite as much love, but that's okay. We're two women on a podcast, okay? So number two on my list is one little line from Monica, but that meant a lot to me. Chances are there's still a chance. Because this is a response to like chances are it's not going to happen, and she's saying chances are, well then there's still a chance. And what an attitude to have, to face the world with that. Well, maybe it could still be like there's an optimism there that I don't know if I always saw Monica as an optimistic character, but she was a very determined character.
Mhm.
So something like this suggests hope, suggests optimism, but it also suggests like there's still room for me to make it happen. Like,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think like, do you need to give up hope right now? Like whatever's happening in your own life that you're thinking, oh, no way. It's like, well, is there really no way? Um, what if you just try
Absolutely.
once more?
Hmm.
And I found that a lot for me in the last couple of years. Like, what if I just send that email one more time? Like
Hmm.
you just
Hmm.
never know when a yes comes your way or when an opportunity comes your way. Um, and in the context of this movie that spans such a long time period, things that feel like failures or things that don't work out in the moment, they seem to come back around in more than one place in Monica's life. So it's just a reminder, like maybe hang on a minute here.
Yeah. And to me, that speaks to her confidence again. That is a confident thing to say. If you are fearless and unrelenting, any inch that someone's going to give you, it relates to anything in life. And I think that it's a great lesson to show people what sports provides for you. That confidence comes when she's playing on a basketball court and someone gives her an inch amount of space. Okay, you gave me some space. I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to take my shot because there's some space here. And that can go with you saying, I'm going to say no to this presentation, not right now. Oh, so there's still a chance. I'm going to shoot my shot one more time. There's so many lessons that playing sports can give you, and especially the confidence of young girls. And we saw that throughout Monica's storyline throughout the entire film, with her being sure of herself, standing up for herself, and the confidence of, I'm going to go get my man. So if you say that there is a chance, I'm going to try. Like there's any obstacle that she was put up against. It was the confidence that what I've done up until this point, I can get through it. I can get past it if you give me just a slight amount of space.
Beautifully said. Yeah, chances are there's still a chance.
Chances are there's still a chance. Just a
Hmm.
great quotable movie, all
Hmm.
fully all around. Gina, you did your thing.
That's the thing. Yeah. Well, what do we have for number one? What's the last one you want to mention here?
Okay, tough spot, but I think we've transitioned into all of these perfectly, and I'm gonna keep it broad and just say my favorite, absolute favorite thing about this movie is that it is a female basketball protagonist. That is something that we don't get often. And the fact that we do follow Monica a lot, and Q is there, and we didn't talk about him a lot because this is Monica's story. This is about her journey. And we see the highs, we see the lows, we see the emotion that sports brings. We see the negative effects of showing your emotion or being too emotional as a woman. Those are things that if a male protagonist or if it was based fully on a male story, that wouldn't have been a storyline. And the fact that Monica is saying she's not getting recruited because of her temper, and she has to tell Quincy, if you did that, you would get a pat on your butt, you would get a high five. I have to control my emotion. I think it was a full look inside what it takes and what it means to be a female basketball player. And that's why it is my favorite movie because throughout all of these favorite things that I've listed, I felt seen. I felt like I was Monica. And to the point where I went to college and I was like, I'm thinking this is going to be like Love and Basketball. Like I'm a freshman. Someone's going to say I can't take their spot. I was second in line as a point guard. I'm like, it's fine because I'm gonna be like Monica and have my redemptive arc in a little bit. It was so much the experience of what it means to be a female hooper and talking with Gina that was very, very important to her. And one of her favorite things about it is that, Sanaa Lathan as Monica Wright became boys and teenage boys like their ideal woman. This tomboy who loves hoop and is all about it and loves her family and has all these experiences that became a a picture of who they want. And she was like, I never felt that when I was a teenager and a tomboy and all about basketball. But it was because she was so real and so true to herself that that confidence is really sexy. It's really attractive. And having a female basketball player as your lead, we were able to just get different storylines in the mix than any other sports movie.
So good. Yeah, I'm trying to like sort of going through the list of movies I can think of, and how many are we really tracking the women?
Hmm.
Um, you know, on my list, dance movies will go there. Th like something like Center Stage has a woman at the front of it, but
Yes, great movie.
even something like one of my favorite, who am I kidding? My favorite movie when I was growing up was The Cutting Edge. Um, but that was a balance
Yeah.
of the two characters that we were tracking, the male and the female protagonist. So it's interesting to think like she really is right at the center of this, and that doesn't happen much for any sport movie. I
It
feel
does
like
not.
gymnastics movies have, or like gymnastics content has evolved over the years, but it's not usually stories that I recognize.
Yeah.
They dramatize the world in ways that doesn't look familiar to me in my experience. So it's really nice to hear that as somebody who was in this very specific world, like it resonates with what you lived and
Yes.
sometimes informed it.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe now,
Absolutely.
now you just need to
But
tell me
to,
you were studying Spanish so you could move
yeah,
to Barcelona.
no, I did not play overseas in Barcelona, but I knew that that was one of the options because of
Mm.
watching this movie. But yeah, I think, maybe gymnastics, maybe cheerleading, you think of Bring It On or different type of sports movies like that, but basketball, which is so typically male dominated, a I don't think people were even thinking about putting a girl basketball player at the center of this sport and in that type of dialogue, in that type of environment, showing what the path to the pros looked like and all the trials and tribulations that go through that. I think it very much painted a picture that still resonates to this day of going overseas, being away from your family, not having enough money to the dream of getting to the WNBA. So it's so relevant, and that's why it has carried for multiple generations of women basketball players because this is still the Bible that we look to of the women's hooper experience.
Mm. I'd, something I'd like for anybody who's watching this, something I'd love to put out there, list in the comments like the movies that are sports movies with a female protagonist. I would love this list. I want to go watch everything. Maybe stuff
Mhm.
like Bend It Like Beckham.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like just all the ones that I'm forgetting right now. Put them there. I want to make sure I've actually seen them all. So that would be such a lovely thing to see that reflected. Be curious if there have been more that have been sparked after this.
Hmm.
Um, because
Definitely.
we've had years now, to reflect on the success of this film. But
Yes.
for everybody listening, like that was our list of 10 things we loved about this movie. What do you love about this movie? Jump into the comments, let us know. I'm sure there are details that we left out in this process, and this is a great time for you to mention them. And before we close out, Jordan, is there anything that you wanted to plug, anywhere we can find you? Tell us what you want us to know.
Yeah, so you can find me on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Jordan Liggins, which is my maiden name, or on TikTok, Hey Jordan Robinson. I am working on my first book titled, or what's the history of women's basketball. So we definitely have a screenshot of Love and Basketball in the movie during the 2000s chapter because it was such a anchor in women's basketball history. So you can find that early 2026. And yeah, you can find me on social.
What a cool thing. We're going to have to watch out for that in early 2026. And thank you for sharing that. Everybody be sure to check out those resources. And if you're all in on Rom-Com Month, this is not the end. There is more. In fact, tomorrow, day 23, we're going to make like a hard left turn. We're going to talk about Sweet Home Alabama from 2002 with Reese Witherspoon, Patrick Dempsey, Josh Lucas. This is one of the films that on the list that I hadn't seen in forever. And I was like, boy, I hope this holds up, but I'm pretty sure I liked it. And I did. So that's going to be a fun one. And I'm joined for that one by Kate Poole, who's an actress that you may know from Vice Principals or Halt and Catch Fire. So she was such a blast to talk to about this movie. So stay tuned for that. And then there's plenty more movies still coming after that. But in the meantime, happy rom-com month, everybody. Get love, get donuts. Bye.